Well, here on episode 104 of Unqualified
I
Gamers,
think that's the number.
that is the number. That is the number. I'm Cody. This is Jonathan. Why? What are we hoping to accomplish here tonight?
I'm looking to entertain. Also looking to educate. I
What's our target
guess
audience?
I guess you could say that I am in the edutainment business
Okay. Okay.
or
What?
the intercation business.
Who might enjoy this podcast?
I, I can't think of anybody.
Me neither. But we're going to talk anyway about video games, mostly John because I
You played Hyrule Warriors.
I did.
Yeah, that's literally all you did, isn't it?
I did. It is actually. I had to pause my game. Actually, I was in the midst of a battle, playing as some woman. I don't know what her name is, Lana or whatever it is. My Wii U is, of course, 15 feet away from my gamepad, so it's lost connection because Chicago. But I
Yeah,
assure
something
you.
is really weird in that town because I can sit upstairs in my living room.
Yeah, I know that. That's because
Probably like
no one lives in Minnesota. You live in a tundra. You are the only wireless signal of any kind within 300 miles. That is why you have no interference.
I
I,
mean, I'm
however,
looking
live
across
in.
the street out my window, and there's a house there.
Well, that's weird. I wonder who put it there. It seems useless. Whereas I live in betwixt two people, plus a house next door, and several apartments within 100 feet of me. So I have, there is, what you could say is I'm intergalactic, radioactive, 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 radioactive.
are you
It really hurt. That really, was very actually quite painful.
are you like bragging about like being more compressed? I don't understand. Like, what are we doing here?
At
Like,
what
what
point
is?
did that sound like bragging? At what point in your life have you ever heard bragging
I it sounded it
take
sound,
that form?
sounded a little holier than thou. I would be thou in this case.
I don't speak Middle Earth English because Lord of the Rings is stupid and boring and all they do is walk. How do you feel about that? That's the kind of mood I'm in tonight.
I mean,
Actually,
I can't. I guess I can't disagree with you.
I'm in a foul mood, listener, because none of my hardware works properly. I've complained about this. A listener sent us an email actually offering a solution, and I haven't even read it yet because I've just been sort of pressed. I don't read emails anymore. Who has time to read emails when your webcam doesn't work? No, but actually it is annoying, and I'm just going to buy a brand new Alienware computer next week. I don't even care anymore. People are like, oh, you could do it cheaper. You could build your own. You could replace part. No, I'm gonna spend $4,000
I
on
mean,
a computer, literally for just because,
I mean
just
that.
to have it.
So that is a solution. Uh, and that computer will probably last you for a really long time because when you spend that much on a computer, you often get like a very good rig. So if you did go that route, you could probably use that computer for a long time. I would urge you that you don't need to spend that much, and you can still go through a company that offers a warranty and get a decent computer.
Okay, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm not in a bad mood. I'm in a great mood. The weather is really nice. Daylight saving happened, which is, of course, one of the dumbest things that there is. But that's kind of what the world does: is stupid things because people used to do them at one point, and now they continue to do them because it's easier than changing things.
It's like
So
the tradition of a dry hand job on your birthday, right?
yeah, what are you?
Yeah, like the dry hand job on the birthday is fine when you're 11 because you're 11. But like, once you're with the same woman for 25 years, like at age 36, you want more than a dry hand job. You don't just get it because it's tradition. Like you would want more than that now. That's what I'm trying to say.
uh,
So Hyrule Warriors is a pretty good game. It's
Yeah,
actually
it's fine.
not.
I'm about to unlock Zant. He's the final secret character. He takes forever to unlock.
It's actually not that good of a game.
Then I'll finish unlocking all the secret characters. Then my goal is to unlock the final 2 weapons in the game because that unlocks the ultimate power of the Master Sword.
So, the weather here is awesome too. My wife, my son, and I just all went on a walk outside when we got home.
Your son can't walk.
No, he can walk. Actually, he walks very well. He didn't walk though. He was in the stroller.
He walks very good.
But he really wanted to walk. So, no, I agree. It was 60 degrees here in Minnesota today. That is unprecedented. It has never been 60 degrees in Minnesota ever.
Yeah, actually, in the history of Minnesota, I believe that's accurate.
It's never been 60 degrees. So it was awesome. It was actually very nice.
Yeah, okay, well, hey, congratulations. What do you want, a fucking medal? Is that what you want? Do you want a medal, John? Do you want a medal for being outside? Do you want a medal for Minnesota?
I'm not really a participation medal kind of guy. That's never really been my thing.
Well,
so yeah,
I wasn't going to give it to you for participating. I was going to give it to you
and
for
when
worse.
I was at lunch today, I sat in my car with the windows open, which is like one of those things. First of all, I've never had a job where I got a lunch, so like I recently started a new job and actually get a lunch now, and so I got to sit in like the fresh air and eat. It was amazing. It was the best. It was the best.
That sounds good. This weekend, I didn't do anything other than play Hyrule Warriors.
You played Hyrule Warriors, yeah. I know you did. You didn't do anything.
No, actually, I did things. Check this out. And at this point, any new listener has left. Like, can we just acknowledge that if this was any first person's episode, hold on. Let's reverse. If this was any person's first episode, drop my pen. If this was anyone's first episode, there is 0% chance they are still listening at this point. Like, we're watching, depending.
I thought my dry handjob anecdote was...
No, that actually would have kept me listening just to see if it led anywhere, which it didn't, which is par for the course for us. But following, I don't know, everything else, it's just one of those episodes. So now we can talk to our loyal listening audience on a more personal level. So finally we can kind of let our hair down. If you have hair, which you have some of, I have very little of after getting it cut. And we can get real. Yo, what up, listener? Thanks for joining. Dag, yo.
It was real. It was real.
It was hot up in here this weekend.
So you didn't actually say anything about what you did this weekend. My wife had a bachelorette party that she went to, and so I was daddy.
Your wife is married. She can't go to a bachelorette party.
I was the sole provider for Max, our son, and it was fun. I don't know.
How hard is it for you personally to produce breast milk for your son?
So he's like over 1 now. So he's actually off of 4. We've actually like stopped formula. Isn't that frightening?
He's over 1 what?
Year old.
Oh, okay.
So we've stopped formula. Like he's not like, isn't that a frightening prospect? Like I have a child that no longer drinks. Like I don't know.
Like
He's
you've
old.
ended science?
He's old. He's just like he's old. He's an old man now.
Hmm.
No. He's basically 2. So yeah, I can't produce breast milk though. At least not very well.
Well,
to answer your question.
I'll be visiting in a couple months, and I guess I'll test that theory.
Cheers. So yeah, that was...
What are you drinking, by the way? Is it a Magic Hat number 9?
It is. It's actually like my favorite beer. I think it's legitimately my favorite beer.
So I was talking to my girlfriend, and I've gotten her into podcasts, quote unquote, and she was telling me that she listened to several, and she said there are some really good ones, there's some really good, interesting ones, but then there's ones where they just kind of like banter, but never have any point. They just keep talking. So like, there's no actual subject to the conversation, and I've heard podcasts like this. This is like my number 1 pet peeve about terrible podcasts, is when it's them sitting around and there's lots of awkward silences and like nothing interesting, but also more so nothing funny is happening. Like it wouldn't like Adult Swim has a lot of shows where there's a lot of like weirdness and awkward silences, and that is humorous because that's their thing. But like podcasts where they just sit there and they talk about like, yeah, like this red light at this corner, it's just always red. And like every time I go up, it's red, and I just have to wait for like 3 minutes. And then like it'll turn, and then like it'll go a couple car lengths, but then it'll like turn red again. And it's just like, yeah, it's just so annoying.
And
then
all of these podcasts are hosted by Valley girls from California?
No, they're podcasted by like dudes or girl. It doesn't matter. All sorts of all walks of life, all walking dead, walking living. They may as well be dead because they're so bad. And I feel like today's episode has sunk to that low already, and we're only 37 minutes in.
I'll be honest. You've been doing more talking this episode than you normally do. So I don't want to say that the two things are related, but you're not very good.
Right. So there's that. You know what part of it is I'm upset that we teased last week that you and I would be doing a project that's not video game related, and then that project didn't happen because
I was dying. No,
I'm dying.
Listen, I've had sicknesses, and they've kept me like out of doing stuff before. I promise you that this was not one that you wanted me to be there for the first try at this new endeavor. I promise. Like I was in a position where like my head was fuzzy at work because I was in so much pain from this sinus infection that I had. So like I promise, like it's gonna be better because we did not record that night. I promise.
It's fine. And it's people get sick. But the way you described it, you said it sounded like you were in just incessant, nonstop, excruciating physical pain.
I legitimately was. Like it went from being just like a pressure in my head, which I had for like a week and a half, to pain. Like I don't know if you've had a severe sinus infection, but I had this like horrendous sharp pain behind my eye, like somebody was like stabbing me behind my eye, and it went all the way down my face on my right side. And I've been stabbed in the face before, and this kind of felt like that, only stabbing from the back.
I remember that.
Yeah, no, that's actually not true. I've never been stabbed. If I was ever stabbed in the face, I think it would have felt like this. And then it went all the way down to my teeth. So it was pretty horrendous. Like and I promise I was in so much pain that I felt like dizzy and lightheaded. And so I would not have been a good castmate for that evening. I just wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been good.
Would you have been a good castaway had you been stranded on an island?
I might have been a good bachelor, because that was a show that just ended.
Would you have joined the Dharma Initiative?
That's also on an island.
Would you have talked to a coconut and made love to it? And let
us now name other things on an island.
Would you have called me the skipper?
I may have.
Or the professor?
You certainly wouldn't have been that.
Oh. Well, you're entitled to be wrong. I did go to a pretentious bar this weekend in Wicker Park.
Were the drinks like $9 a piece? Wait, all the drinks are $9 a piece there. Were the drinks like $14 a piece?
13. But place is called Violet Hour. They have
that sounds pretentious.
Oh my gosh, it's very pretentious. Really good. Highly recommend it. I had friends in town, actually 2 pharmacy majors from Drake, Ben and Katie. I don't think you know them, but they're awesome. They're a couple years younger than we are. They're awesome. They were in town, and Ben really likes beer a lot. Like, he brews his own. He's got like 3 different kinds. He can tell you the science behind how yeast ferments and like the chemical processes behind it. So he's a bit of a nerd with that stuff. Pharmacy major, pharmacists are usually nerds, also usually really really antisocial, awkward, and horrific looking, and have terrible webcams. But he's none of those things actually. So so I was thinking to myself, well, you've been to some bars in the city, you've had some good food. We should go to the Violet Hour. Well, they'll have a lot of drinks you've never tried before. Their thing is like they have like the best mixologists in the city, so they make really interesting drinks. They have apparently 3 or 4 separate ice buckets that each produce a different type of ice because different drinks call for different types of ice.
Are there any feces in their drinks?
Probably. So it's like very meticulously made, and there's some very, very good liquor there. For example, there's a scotch, and I don't remember what it was called, so don't ask me. Shut up. There's a scotch that is a single barrel.
What was that called?
It was a whiskey, actually.
Yeah, what was it called?
There's a single barrel whiskey that they had, and he said it's not commercially available, but they bought the barrel from this distillery and had them bottle it for them. So it's a single barrel whiskey, which means that all the whiskey came from the same barrel, which I guess is good.
No, that's a thing.
Is it a thing?
It's a thing.
So it's a single barrel, so they had them bottle it or whatever, and it was 90 proof. And I went there a few weeks ago, and the bartender got me and my girlfriend a shot of it, and just at the end, like, oh, thanks for the drinks, cheers, we'll have this. And it was so smooth, like, it required less of a chaser than a Pepsi or a Mountain Dew might require. Which, for me, as a gamer, as an actual gamer, not a faux gamer like you, I had a straight hair, I had to adjust it. That's why I'm stroking my head right now, by the way. Unlike you, a real gamer, enjoy Mountain Dew, but like it was that smooth, and my girlfriend was just like, if you brought this to a college party, you would kill 3 people. Like it was just that smooth. So when we went back over the weekend, I had a cocktail made with that whiskey, and that was $18, but probably worth it.
Why would you mix it if it was so good by itself?
Well, it was pretty much it by itself, but with a couple other like herbs and spices. I don't know. It's like KFC's recipe. Like chicken is good enough on its own, but when you throw in a little Colonel Sanders, it's like chicken in your mouth.
So you're saying that this was the KFC of whiskey?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't actually make it sound that good.
Have you ever had KFC? They have a secret recipe that's locked in a vault. I'm not kidding. I've seen the vault.
I mean, I guess I believe you that there's a vault.
You didn't know there was a vault?
Actually, I don't believe you.
All right, listener, if you're watching live on Google Hangouts right now, please explain to John that there's a vault. Do you know what they call the keeper of the vault, who is a sorcerer?
No.
Voldemort. Lord Voldemort.
Were we I fucking hate you. Were we debuting a new well, this is supposed to be the first thing we were going to do on this show. Or were we debuting a new segment?
I'm actually going to edit out the first 20 minutes of this podcast because I've been so bad. This is going to be a special feature on the blooper reel. What else is going on in your life? I want to know. How's the wife and kid? Have you guys gone on a walk lately?
I swear to God. So Cody and I talked about a new feature called what was it called? You named it.
The qualifying round.
The qualifying round, where we were going to take a turn because you really wanted to make... What's wrong with you? You wanted to make this appeal to people that may not have been... But everybody stopped listening already anyway. So the idea behind this was to take a term that we were going to discuss. We were going to discuss on the show, and we were going to explain it. It was going to be a term that is basically specific to gamers, right? Like lingo that you and I throw around when we're talking. These hip kids talking jive on the street. That jive to which I am referring, that gamer jive, is something that, like, you as the listener, we might take that for granted, that you might not know what we're talking about when we use a term, right? So, for instance, this week, I'm going to talk about Heroes of the Storm. Cody's not going to talk about anything, thank God. And Heroes of the Storm is classified as a MOBA, all right? Which, if you know nothing about them, you would have no idea what that means. So for qualifying round this week, our term is going to be MOBA.
Round 1 of qualifying round. The term is MOBA?
So MOBA is, and
Back to you, John.
yeah, I'm explaining it right now. So MOBA is, you need to shut your mouth. So MOBA stands for Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. And I've talked about this before. If you go back and listen to episode somewhere in the 80s, I would guesstimate, or in the maybe the 90s, 80s or 70s, who knows, somewhere long, long ago, I talked about League of Legends. And I've talked about League of Legends multiple times throughout. It's a thread that has run throughout this show ever since I started playing it last year. But League of Legends is a MOBA, and again, that stands for Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. And what that is it's a relatively new genre of game. It's actually been around for a while, but it got legitimized as like an actual thing when League of Legends, and I'll get a bunch of crap from this from Dota players, but when League of Legends made like a specific, they made like the first specific product that was a MOBA. So Dota, which was the very first MOBA, DOTA, which stands for Defense of the Ancients, came out within Warcraft 3, which was a real-time strategy game that Blizzard made. And it was just a mod that some guy made. Some guy named Ice Frog made this mod called Dota. And what characterizes a MOBA as a genre is there are different characters from which you can pick, and the characters all have different characteristics. Some of them may be ranged fighters, some of them may be melee fighters, some of them may be magic ranged users, some of them may be magic melee users, right? Some of them may be like tanks, like they may get really defensive stats as they level up. Some of them may basically get only offensive stats, and they may be kind of like glass cannons, right? So you can pick from a variety of champions, and it's typically 5-on-5. There are some variations in various games where it's more or less than that. Most of the time, less than that. So it's 5-on-5, and there is the goal of the creators of MOBAs is to create as balanced of an experience between characters as possible. So the characters like vary wildly in terms of their abilities and skill sets, but at optimal play, one is not like stronger than, like objectively stronger than another one, so that you can create these interesting teams of 5 that can be even with each other if played to like the best of those characters' abilities, right? And then the game is pretty much always set up in various lanes. So there's going to be a nexus at each side. There's going to be a main structure at each side of the map. And the goal of the game is to destroy that. And then to get to that structure, there are usually 3 different lanes that your characters can walk down. There's a top, a middle, and a bottom. And they can go, the lane goes straight from one side of the map to the other, from one building to the other, and along that lane are various towers that are very powerful. They can destroy heroes very quickly. Like they could, if your character just walked up to a tower and tried to bash it in, and this goes for all MOBAs, the tower would destroy you. So there's also things that are called minions that are constantly being spawned by each of these structures on each side of the map for each team. The minions are walking from one side of the map to the other. They're fighting each other. Your characters can also kill minions. And the minions are there to basically take tower shots while your heroes are there fighting the towers to destroy them. So eventually all the towers in one lane are destroyed. You can then reach the main building. Your team destroys that building and you win the game.
Yeah.
That is generally how MOBAs work.
And the one that we liked is called Awesome Knots.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because it's a platforming MOBA. So it's a platform game like Mega Man or Mario where you jump up and down and go left and right, and it's a 2-dimensional, but it's set up the way other MOBAs are set up. Other MOBAs generally, at least Dota and League of Legends, the 2 most popular, are set up like strategy games.
In general, MOBAs are from a top-down isometric view.
Yes,
So
so
they're kind of like a three-quarters perspective.
yeah,
Awesome Nuts was a 2D perspective side scroller.
yeah. So there's that. I was dumbing it down a little bit extra for those who are still confused. This is the qualifying round, John. The first round or episode, as it were, of the qualifying round. So
Yeah, so that's what MOBAs are, and they quickly, when I started playing League of Legends, they quickly became my very, very favorite genre of game. There is a they're completely competitive, which I really appreciate, and it was definitely not something that I've never really been a competitive gamer at all, honestly. I've never been. But once I started playing League of Legends, that's all I wanted to do was play League of Legends. And you pretty much always play it against other human beings. So and in League of Legends there's about 100 and I want to say there's like 115 champions now from which to choose. So the combinations of team are endless, right? I mean, it's huge, the team variation. So I fell really deep down that hole of playing that game, and I had slightly less fun with that game than I had with World of Warcraft at its heyday. But League of Legends might be like the second best game experience that I've ever had. Was when I really got into that, right? So, but here's the problem: a game of League of Legends from start to finish takes roughly an hour because there is the matchmaking part of it where you have to wait for a match to be found. There is the drafting portion of the game, and League of Legends uses a drafting system where in like the main competitive version of the game, you don't just all pick your characters and go. The first player will ban some characters that they do not want to be used by either team, and then the second team will do that, and they'll do that one character at a time until each team has 3 bans, and then you'll pick your team in a snake draft. So the first player will pick their champion, and then 2 players from the opposing team will pick their champions, and then 2 players from the first team will, and so on and so forth until everybody's picked their champions. And then you'll load into the map, and then you'll start. That whole process takes about 10 minutes. It can take slightly longer than that too if people take more time with their
damn,
picks.
really?
It does, yeah, because there's some strategery that is supposed to happen during that phase of the game. And then you actually get into the game, and the games typically last of League of Legends typically last from anywhere from 25 minutes to 45 minutes. So when all is said and done, you're looking at 45 minutes to an hour of time that you are committing to a single game of League of Legends. Now, keep in mind, you cannot pause the game. So, I mean, there are a lot of people that are in situations where that's not a problem. I now have a child and a wife. So, the chances of me being able to get through an hour of uninterrupted time are incredibly low. They're just incredibly low.
It was actually it got to the point where last year at Gen Con, in the one section of the e-gaming area, they had League of Legends, and you bought some generic tickets for time to go play League of Legends at Gen Con because you had uninterrupted League of Legends time, correct?
Yeah, and honestly, I would 100% do it again because it was a chance to do something that I really, really enjoy that I didn't get a chance to do at home anymore. So that was really fun. That was a very fun time that I was playing games, but then once Max came, there just wasn't time for League of Legends anymore. So I've always kind of been trying to chase that a little bit, that experience again. And Awesome Knots is a good filler for that, and I have actually played it a little bit since we had Max. The problem is that Awesome Knots is not a level playing field when you're playing the game on PC. So it allows you to use a gamepad for play, but it also allows you to use keyboard for input as well. And so the people that are playing on keyboard are matched in the same matches as the people that are playing on the gamepad. And so in Awesome Knots, the people with the keyboards tend to have the advantage because a mouse, I don't care who you are, in general, a mouse and keyboard is going to be much more precise than the joysticks on a gamepad. So the people on a keyboard have much more precision and they have a very obvious advantage in Awesome Knots. And you can tell when somebody's using a mouse and keyboard a lot of the time. So Awesome Knots like fills that role a little bit, but the real joy of the MOBA comes from having like a very balanced game between the two teams and having the game swing back and forth over the course of the game that you're playing. So I've been kind of chasing this MOBA dragon for a while. And I got an email about a month ago that said, hey, you've been selected to be in the closed beta for Heroes of the Storm. Heroes of the Storm is Blizzard's answer to the MOBA. So Blizzard, as you know, is like my favorite developer of all time. I think they make the highest quality games of like any games that I've ever played. And so I got all excited. I was like, all right, well, I'm totally going to try this out. And I didn't really get a chance to do it until about 2 weeks ago. So I got in there, and they have about 30 champions from which to choose. And Blizzard's take on the MOBA genre is to have more maps, which is kind of an interesting take. So League of Legends literally has always existed and been played on a single map, kind of like a basketball court. Right? So like the actual logistics of the map never change. Like in terms of the placement of stuff. It has always been the same. And that has been by design because they want the variability to come with the difference between the champions, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, and now League of Legends has become a big esport. And so like it's become generally well accepted that like you can't change the map at this point because it needs to be, if it needs to be a competitive field, the field has to remain the same. Like you wouldn't go change a soccer field, you wouldn't go change a basketball court if you've got like a competitive game going on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least not without a lot of deliberation. Blizzard has said what we're going to do is we are going to change the map. So we're going to have like 5 different maps that you can play on, and they're all going to have slight differences. And we're going to have these different quirks and objectives to each map that, if you complete, will grant your team a large power spike for a period of time. So to give you an example, there's one map where there are these neutral camps of monsters in the middle of the map, and there's a day and night cycle on this map, and when night spawns, if you go kill these plants in the middle of the map, they drop seeds. And if your team reaches 100 seeds, they spawn this giant plant monster that you can control that just goes and destroys the other player's towers very easily and can kill some of the enemy champions, right? That's one example. Another one is there's another map where there's only 2 lanes. There's a top lane and a bottom lane. And your characters can enter some mines at various points throughout the match. They'll open up, and you can go kill some enemies there, collect some items down there, and they will unlock a big golem that walks across the map, is not controlled, just walks across the map and destroys structures. And the team that gets the most skulls has the stronger golem, right? And so there's various maps like this. I think there's like 5 or 6 maps in the game already, and they plan on introducing more maps. And the map is chosen randomly at the start of the match. And so there's some really good variability there in terms of like the power spikes from these objectives are so strong that you always have to play for the objectives to be competitive in the game. And so every time you play the game, it feels a little different because you're doing different objectives compared to a different map. The other kind of cool thing about it is they've really simplified things. So I didn't really talk about the champions at all when I talked about MOBAs, but in a general MOBA, your champions have 4 abilities and sometimes a passive ability, and you level up your character. Your character goes from level 1 to whatever the MOBA says it goes up to. And as they level up, they put points into different abilities, and that makes the abilities stronger. So, and each character levels up individually, in like every other MOBA that I've played. In this game, in Heroes of the Storm, your characters all level up at the same time. So they share a giant experience pool that they can all contribute to, but then your team is always of the same strength. So it keeps there from being a very apparent like weak link. Because part of the problem with this genre of game is the community can be a little aggressive,
Uninviting.
uninviting, and they take a long time to learn. So if you're the weak link on a team, it's very common for you to be criticized pretty strongly by your team. Like that's a very common thing to happen. So this game eliminates that, not completely, but it definitely eliminates it a little bit by having a shared experience pool. So that's kind of nice. They've also done away with some of the other mechanics that MOBAs generally have that simplify the game. And then the biggest selling point for me is that a match in general lasts about 20 minutes. And so it's a game that I have found that I have an easier time sitting down and being able to play like one match at a time. And don't get me wrong, like it still has to be uninterrupted time, because it is another game you cannot pause, obviously. But I tend to be able to find 20 minutes here and there to be able to play a single round of this game compared to a game like League of Legends. Because an hour is a lot more. It's an hour in like general is not a lot more time than 20 minutes, but like when you're me right now, it's a lot more time.
Yeah, that's like almost twice as long.
Exactly. So the game, and here's what I would say to you about Heroes of the Storm. It's going to be released eventually. It's still in closed beta right now. I imagine they'll eventually have an open beta, because that's the way Blizzard generally does things. Their closed betas oftentimes last a brief period of time, because they're just ironing out the logistical kinks before they send it live. So they'll open a beta sometime, and then once they do that and you can just get into it, I would recommend this be the first MOBA you try if you are a MOBA virgin, because it is a very simplified version of the genre. Now that's not to say that it doesn't have depth, because it has a lot of depth. But one of the other, like, to give you another example, in League of Legends and in every other MOBA that I can think of, there's items that you can buy that like modify your character in some way, that give you special powers, etc. There's nothing to buy in Heroes of the Storm. They've completely done away with the shop with items. So the variability between your character from game to game comes from talents that you unlock. So like every 3 levels, you unlock a talent that modifies one of your abilities, and you can choose from like 5 different things. So ideally, you like never have the same talent build. You could play the same character in multiple games, but you can have a different talent build each time, so the character will feel different when you play it.
How are they making money then?
So they make money the same way, and this is a free-to-play game. They make money the same way that League of Legends does. What they will do is they will have champions that you can use that rotate from week to week. There's an in-game currency called gold, and it's the only currency. So you can play a particular champion, and then once it goes off of rotation, you won't be able to play that champion again unless you buy that champion with gold. A champion can cost like 10,000 gold. So then you can have that champion and play whenever you want. And you accumulate gold as you play the game through quests that they offer, as well as through matches. You'll just get a small amount of gold for matches.
Like in Hearthstone.
Right. And then after, like, you could technically unlock all of the characters with money that you have earned from playing the game. Or you could just buy a character for a certain amount of money. They just say like $6.99. So like you click on that and you pay $6.99 and you have that character unlocked just as if you had unlocked it with gold. And then they also just like League of Legends, have different skins for the characters in the game that will modify both the character's appearance as well as the character's abilities, which you have proven is something people spend money on because that is something you spend money on.
Absolutely. Half the reason I'm playing through the additional adventure modes in Hyrule Warriors is to unlock additional costume. Ooh, I haven't used Link's alternate costume I unlocked yet. Thanks for reminding me.
I'm glad I could. So that's how they're making. That's how they're going to make money. Is they're going to, they're just going to have these different skins for the different characters that will modify the way they look. Won't affect the way they play at all. And that's it. That's as easy as the formula gets. League of Legends has been making money hand over fist this way. So I imagine that Blizzard's not going to have any problems making a bunch of money this way either.
Cool. And have you found the community? Well, it's the beta, but how do you find the community in this game?
Um, there has been some similar people to League of Legends. It's not nearly as bad, though. I think in general, I've played a lot of Blizzard games. In general, the Blizzard community tends to be a little more inviting than some other communities. That's not to say there aren't like fringe members that are jerks, because in any community you have those. But I think the majority of people in Blizzard communities tend to be a little nicer.
Okay. So it's less awful than League of Legends.
Yeah, and that's another reason why it's probably it's in fact I know it is. It's a really good starting point for the MOBA genre. It really is.
Awesome.
Yeah, and they have a really great and this is going to sound kind of silly, but they have a really great tutorial. The tutorial is super. It's not serious at all. They make fun of all of the tropes in the MOBA genre. Um, it's like it's genuinely funny and fun, and it takes you through like all of the things that you're going to be doing in this game to be a successful player at Heroes of the Storm.
But
So,
Blizzard has always been like that.
oh yeah, for sure, absolutely, they've always been good at that. But I'm giving props to something when props are due. Like it deserves to be recognized because it's an excellent tutorial.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. So once it comes out, I really think this is the one to start with and take a look at. I really am.
And where did you get the beta invite from?
From Blizzard. So like if you go to battle.net, if you have played any Blizzard game in the past like 10 years, you've had to make a battle.net account. So if you go into your battle.net account on the computer and you go into there's like a tab for beta interest. It's like an opt-in thing. You can say, I'm interested in being in this beta. So I did that about 3 months ago and eventually got the invite to the closed beta because of that. So you can go in there and say, I'm interested in the Heroes of the Storm beta, click on that and save that, and eventually you may get an invite to the closed beta. Eventually, like I said, they will open the beta because I think they always do. They will open the beta and you'll be able to get it. Anybody will be able to try it out. And I will say that normally with a beta situation, at the end of a beta they wipe everything, and everybody starts from the same place at the start of the game, right? Like everybody, so they would like take away anything people unlocked once the main game came out, just to start everybody from square one. They're not doing that in this case. Anything that you buy will remain on your account in the full game. And the reason for that in this particular case is that the hero and this is true for all MOBAs, the hero that you play the first time that you play a hero will be the same as the hero that you play 200 times later when you've played that hero 200 times. Because they always start in the same place at the start of every game. So, like, there's no advantage to having more characters unlocked once this game is released. So you're going to, like, I will have multiple characters unlocked when this game is released, and you would come in and you would have nothing unlocked, and I have no advantage other than my experience with the game system. Like having characters unlocked doesn't give you any advantage. So it's really not a big deal that they are allowing progress to save throughout the beta.
Well, I want in, so make that happen.
Well, you have
Okay.
to make that happen. You have to go to your battle. I just told you how. Like, you
No, I
literally
know.
don't listen to me.
No, I know, but I want you to do it for me.
Okay, what's your so I need your bank account login information then to make this
Okay.
happen.
I just sent it to a guy in Nigeria. Let me just forward you that email.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great because then I can get into your bank account and I can sign you up for the Heroes of the Storm beta.
Okay, yeah, because you have to pay for it, right? You said it was $39.99 a month for the beta,
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
open beta, because the closed beta is free, but the open beta then you have to pay $40 a month.
yeah, no, that's exactly what I said.
Okay, cool, good. I'm glad we're on the same page. I'm glad that I listened to everything that you say. I'm glad that I look so good looking today.
Get this game when it comes out.
I
I'm
think I
serious.
will.
I'm serious. This is legitimately the one. It is, and the games take less time, which is really nice. And there are clear objectives for which you are supposed to go. I think the game just like this genre really is brand new. I mean, in the scope of gaming, it is one of the newest genres of games, and so it has the most leaps of iteration that are going to happen in the next in like the next few years. Like the 2D platformer at this point is pretty much perfected. Like you're not going to see a ton of new advancement in that particular genre. The first person shooter has been around forever. You're not going to see like a ton of advancement in that genre. You may see a couple of new ideas that are fun, but they're not going to like fundamentally change it, right? There's going to be stuff coming out in the MOBA scene that's going to fundamentally change the way these games are played because there's so many things that haven't been tried yet because it is so new. So of the big MOBAs that have been released so far, like this is I think the most accessible. It's the most streamlined, um, and it might be the most fun.
Well, and I mean, Blizzard's in a pretty good way right now because Blizzard games have a very storied history of being competitive tournament games, right? Like, I mean, StarCraft is the biggest sport in South Korea and has been for 13 years or whatever.
Actually, I think League of Legends is now.
Is it really?
Yeah, it really is.
Wow.
Yeah, I think League of Legends is now.
Well,
But
StarCraft was
StarCraft was for sure.
for over a decade.
Yeah, and StarCraft 2 is also still a pretty big esport game. Hearthstone has kind of blown up into that. Like Hearthstone is huge in the esports arena.
Right, exactly. So Blizzard like is no stranger to esports, and then MOBAs are the hottest esport, right? Like the biggest esports in the world are League of Legends and Dota, I believe. Or,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
yeah, like by a mile. So now you've got Blizzard, who is no stranger to esports, and they're getting into the genre that is like the biggest esport. I mean, it makes perfect sense, and it's going to be really interesting to see like what happens because I don't know. I mean, we'll
I
probably be watching stadiums packed with people watching Heroes of the Storm tournaments a year from now,
I
right?
would love that. That would be awesome. I don't see it being able to crack the League of Legends. Like they're going to have to figure out a way to create the production value that is currently being done surrounding League of Legends larger events. Because like the Worlds event for League of Legends that I watch every year and have been for 2 years now, the production value is insane. I mean it is an awesome sight to behold. Like it is amazing. So they would need to find something similar. Like they would need to figure out a way to do that and play it up the same way.
Oh, because I haven't watched that much Hearthstone or StarCraft stuff. It's not the same. They don't have a big production like.
Not even close.
Okay.
Yeah, not even close. So I think I've actually had you watch some of the competitive League of Legends stuff, haven't I? Haven't you watched
Oh,
some of
I've watched on my own. I mean, it's literally ESPN quality.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, yeah, I think they would kind of need to figure that out. And I trust Blizzard to be able to do that. I mean, they're definitely a company that could do that, but it's not going to be an overnight thing. And they have to build up a fan base. I mean, the game has to get into everybody's hands first. If just by definition, as a closed beta, only certain people can play it right now. And there's a big buzz. Like, there's definitely a buzz that is surrounding this game right now in the MOBA community. But it's still so small because there's a lot of people that can't play it.
I'm taking notes.
It'll get big. It'll get big.
I'm not worried about that. Most Blizzard games will, especially if it's on the Battle.net dashboard, right, or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, which is different than Steam because of the Battle.net dashboard. Instead of having 400 games in your library, there are like 5.
Yep.
StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3, all those. It's
it's definitely easier to look at.
Yeah, way simpler and fewer options and all that. I haven't picked up Hearthstone in a while. I probably should.
You don't have to. It's totally the type of game where you can put it down for a couple of months, come back to it, and still have fun playing it.
That's true. It does. That does.
Unlike Hyrule Warriors, which you have to obviously play 18 hours a day until you complete it. I don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know what you're doing.
Well, I do to a degree. Are we done talking about Heroes of the Storm?
We are. I've got nothing else to say about it other than get your hands on it when you can.
Yeah. No, I think I probably will. So as soon as you sign me up for the closed beta, I'll be good.
Like I said, just need your bank account information.
So there's that. So Hyrule Warriors is one of those games where you have so much to unlock that you set miniature goals within that. Like in Batman Arkham City, we've discussed there are like 500 Riddler trophies, which are all optional, right? So you might say, like, let's say you check at the end of the game, and you're like just in some spot in the middle of the map, and there's like, for simplicity's sake, let's say there's 10 areas, and you notice there's like 20 Riddler trophies per area, so that's a couple hundred. Well, in one of the areas you have 18 Riddler trophies, so you're like, well, hey, I'll get an achievement on my Xbox 360 if I go get those 2 other Ridley trophies in that area to complete the 20 out of 20 in that area. So I'm going to go do that. And then you do that. And then maybe you're like, well, that puts me at 148 total trophies. So if I get 2 more, then that puts me at 150. So maybe I'll go get 2 more random trophies. So then you go do that. And, like, that's what you do. You set small goals internally in your mind, and you're like, okay, I'll reach that. And then you reevaluate, and you say, okay, do I want to do the next thing? Do I want to do the next thing? And that's how I am operating with Hyrule Warriors. Like, there are 4 secret characters in the adventure mode map. You can unlock these characters as playable characters. So between all the DLC and all these, and the 3 characters I got in adventure mode, so now I've got like all these playable characters, but there's one missing, that one question mark in the character select screen, and that bothers me because I think there's a sense of completionism
Right, something is wrong with you.
/ addiction / maybe a little obsessive compulsiveness that makes you want, like, you don't want to have that one question mark. So I was like, well, I'm going to go through adventure mode and unlock stuff on the way, but my goal is to unlock that final secret character. But then, by the time I unlock that secret character, I have now unlocked a bunch of other stuff, and now I'm within like 2 levels of getting the final 2 weapons in the game. And you can't unlock the full potential of the Master Sword and all its abilities or whatever until you unlock all of the weapons in the game. So currently, quite literally, I mean, I can't play it here because signals, but currently I'm about to get the final secret character, and then great. Then over the next week or so, I'll get those 2 other weapons, and then we'll see what I want to do. At that point, then I'll have like 4 squares or tiles to complete in adventure mode, so I might as well like wait, and then I'll feel kind of accomplished. Like, oh yeah, I did the whole map. Cool. I don't know. And then maybe just play around a little bit with one of the other 3 maps I got, but I'll probably just take a break for a while. Or not. I don't know. That's the nice thing about games with an insane amount of content. You can kind of just play it forever, or you can not. They upped the level cap in Hyrule Warriors to 200, by the way. I don't know if you saw that patch.
That's something we needed.
I beat the game at 45 with 1 character. The rest of the characters were like 20. So there's that.
So before we go further, I just looked at our Q&A page, and we've actually got a couple of questions on the Q&A thing.
What?
Yeah. So let's run through them real quick here. Um, Betty Page asked, it's not overloaded with microtransactions. I'm assuming she means Here's the Storm, which I was just talking about. And actually,
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to
and
move that
actually,
topic.
yeah, actually, no, there are no microtransactions in it, other than you can buy a character if you want, if you don't want to save up the gold for it by playing the game, or you can buy the skins for the characters that literally don't change the power of the character at all. They just change the way it looks. So that's it. And so those microtransactions are completely optional, and alter they don't alter your power as a player in the game at all.
Cool. Good answer.
Next question: do you guys play games and show them? You have in the past. I have in the past as well. We haven't in a while. I don't know. Time has decreased for our ability to do that.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
What I'd like to eventually do, actually, at some point, is, should the technology allow it, is capture John and I over a Google Hangouts-like setting while showing gameplay. The problem is that currently we are only able to capture gameplay natively from PC games. That's actually less of a problem for you, but for me, like, I play a lot of Wii U and sometimes PS3 or Xbox 360, but I can't capture that footage, so that's annoying.
Yeah, I don't even know how you would capture footage from a Wii U.
You can, I mean, you can just get a box that attaches to a computer, an HDMI box, and it runs through that, like going from a VCR to your TV, basically. Right. So it's possible, but then on the other hand, all I've been playing is Wii U, and Nintendo has various restrictions on showing footage of its games on YouTube now. So I don't even know what I don't want to deal with that whole thing. But for PC games in the future, like Risk of Rain, for example, I'll make a local recording, and if we talk about that game, I'll be able to overlay that onto our video. So long story short, not really, but we would like to show more gameplay footage in the future to answer that question.
Yeah,
and there's another question from the same...
Another question from the same person. Do you just talk about games, is what he said. And yes, on this show, that is pretty much it.
But we do a lot of other... We don't just talk about them. We do have Let's Play videos and a couple unboxing parody videos that are...
We also kind of talk about gaming news sometimes if it's something we find relevant or just interesting to us. And we also talk about gamer culture.
Yeah, a little bit, to a degree. Like, we didn't... I mean, we lasted... My recording, of course, stopped. There we go. For example, for several months, we did not address Gamergate, but then I got really drunk one night and by myself recorded a 20-minute bit about it. So that's all the time we spent on that. But occasionally, like, we did spend the better part of an episode talking about the esports league separating, like, male competitors and female competitors in StarCraft and things like that. So we've tackled some topics, other ones we ignore. It's kind of whatever. But there's some really, there is a bit more variety if you want to go to our YouTube channel, which is where you are right now. Actually, you're looking at us, so why am I saying that? But it's youtube.com/unqualifiedpodcast, or go to unqualifiedgamers.com and you can find all of our, like, podcasts and all the various things we do. I also make memes from time to time. We have some really good Castlevania Symphony of the Night memes, so we do a little bit of a variety here and there. Mostly podcasts, because John and I mostly don't have time to do anything else but work and have family time. So there's that. But we do the best we can with what we've got. I don't know what that means. We try to, I don't know, put cool stuff on the internet that people think are funny or entertaining, so there's that.
We try to do that.
Yeah, we try. God knows I have failed quite a bit tonight. And then we got another question in the Q&A. Well, it's not a question, but Betty Page said, haha, don't even get me started on Gamergate, LOL. We won't. Again, we've never actually talked. I don't think we've ever said those words on this podcast, on our main podcast. So
yeah, it's not a subject that we...
Except for the thing that I got really drunk, which
right,
actually...
It's not something that we choose really to discuss.
Yeah, except for the drunk one. And actually, you actually put it best when you said that I sounded more articulate and logical on that drunken solo podcast than I usually do on a regular podcast.
Really, than you've ever sounded on a regular
Yeah,
podcast.
pretty much. I was told that actually, but I had my girlfriend listen to it as well, and she was like, "You're incredibly articulate, and this is like really well thought out and structured. Were you going off like a script?" And I was like, "No, I was drunk."
So I think the solution to most of your problems is just get wasted before you have to do anything.
Kind of really. I think I should have been drinking tonight. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight. I'm just kind of all over the place. There's a lot on my mind. I have a lot of YouTube idea. I posted a YouTube video the other day. Did you see that?
I did. I actually watched it.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It happened. It wasn't. I felt stronger at the time.
It was awful. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was the worst thing I've ever seen.
So, but actually, on several of our most recent episodes, viewer/listener, I've teased this limited edition 20th anniversary PlayStation 4 story, basically. Long story, go check out the video. I made a video on flipping consoles, and I do not own a PlayStation 4. Is the short of it. But go check out that.
It's actually a pretty interesting video. Go check it out if you haven't yet.
I think it's. I don't think it's that interesting. I think I'm explaining a very, very basic principle of basic economics that most people, I feel, should be aware of if they choose to have a very strong opinion of something. Like, don't have that opinion unless you're a little educated about it, is all. So for the people that basically like had this violently averse reaction to a thing that some people were doing, you should probably understand the concept behind it before freaking out about it. That's all. Could I have been any more vague? Possibly. I'm not really sure. So there's that. It's a thing that happened. But so yeah, I did do a thing on YouTube though, so that was exciting. We posted a video other than just our podcast.
So that's also something that we do sometimes.
Yeah. I'd love to do more Let's Plays, but maybe this summer when the weather's crappy and I don't feel like going outside.
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right.
Right. So yeah. So how much what are you this week? Are you just gonna do more Here's the Storm? Do you think, or do you want to start anything new, or?
I don't know. Like because I have been playing Hyrule Warriors a lot too.
Even though it's not a good game, according to you.
It's not a good game, and I 100% stand by that. I will not change my mind on that. It's not a good game.
I know. You refuse to falter in any way about that.
That being said, I'm playing Adventure Mode now, and I'm finding it kind of obnoxious, but I'm still playing it, and I don't know what the hell is wrong with me, but I find it kind of obnoxious.
It's because you're unlocking stuff.
I think it's just because like I'm looking to just turn my head off, like my brain off, which is something that this game 100% provides. So I think that's what it is. I think I'm just looking to turn my brain off and just kill a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like the episode.
It's completely mechanically uncomplicated.
Yeah.
And so, like, you don't have to like. There's no like twitch movements or anything. There's no like. You don't have to have fast reactions. You just have to hammer a button a couple of times, and then hammer another button, and that creates a combo that just destroys everything on the screen. Like that's what you have to do multiple times, and there's a satisfaction to that.
I think because you got the game, we are now reaching the point where we may have, on this podcast, not this episode, but on our series, on Unqualified Gamers, the podcast, we may have surpassed the amount of talking we did about Final Fantasy 13-2.
I don't think that's true.
I think it might be.
I don't think that's true.
And the running gag, the first, 30 or 40 episodes was how I constantly talked about Final Fantasy 13-2. I think Hyrule Warriors is getting up there because our episodes are longer than they used to be. We used to only do 40 or 45-minute episodes. Ours are closer to an hour or more now.
Those were the best days.
Were they?
Yes.
Well, we're going to finish before 9, so you can go to Betty bye.
Thank God.
So there's that. I also made a guest appearance on the Gonna Geek podcast. We are part of the Gonna Geek Network. There's a lot of really cool shows. I was on All Things Good and Nerdy, which I've been on several times before. I love those guys. Very fun. They talked about my hair the whole time, so apparently anyone I podcast or broadcast with is obsessed with my hair. I guess I'm that good looking. So
mostly how much we hate your hair.
Great. Well, thank you for thinking that I'm very good looking. You're astute in that particular observation. Is all that I have to
Well,
say about that.
we'll probably be back next week, don't you think? With an,
Probably.
with another episode of
Probably.
Unqualified Gamers.
Probably. All we're gonna do is talk about we're just gonna rename ourselves the Hyrule Warriors cast, actually.
In the meantime, listener, you should check us out at unqualifiedgamers.com and go play some video games because they're really fun.
Yes. And if you would like us to talk about anything in particular, we're always down to download mobile games or try out little indie games or beta builds of something or whatever. The best way to probably message us is to email us at unqualifiedpodcast@gmail.com. I do see that we have an email in our inbox from our good friend / listener Ryan, who is on our 99th episode. I have not read it yet because my notifications cleared on my phone and I was not reminded later that we had an email. But normally I see we have emails and actually reply to them. So I'll reply to you soon, Ryan. And to the rest of you, unqualifiedpodcast@gmail.com. We do check it, albeit maybe sometimes not within 72 hours, but normally. And we'll do that kind of stuff. And for everything else, you can find us on unqualifiedgamers.com. We also have an Android app in the Google Play Store, and you can subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher. And all that good stuff. Who's your favorite character in Hyrule Warriors?
The Master Sword.
It's not.